Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Some interesting new information emerging from the states about the $10,200 unemployment tax break, and some super interesting comments from President Biden about the infrastructure bill, the next massive spending plan that we're about to see, and some even more interesting things, believe it or not, that former President Trump is up to. Welcome to this episode of Ignition Time, everyone. Let's just jump right in. Let's start with this headline on your screen from Fox Business. Some states will not allow taxpayers to collect President Biden's $10,200 unemployment tax break. Now, keep in mind that $10,200 in unemployment income is traditionally subject to both federal and state income taxes. What the federal government did is, for unemployment benefits received in 2020, up to $10,200 per person for households making up to $150,000 a year, they would not have to pay federal income taxes on that $10,200 of income. Now, this is for 2020 unemployment benefits. Keep in mind that states can still charge taxes on unemployment income. There are some states that are not charging state taxes on unemployment income for 2020, but every state is indeed different. With this article that you see on your screen, the American Rescue Plan does indeed waive federal income taxes on up to $10,200 in 2020 unemployment insurance benefits. So there are 13 states that will not offer that benefit, which means if you're subject to state income taxes in those states, you will have to pay state tax on those unemployment benefits. You're not going to pay federal tax if you're eligible, and I mentioned the eligibility criteria just a couple of minutes ago, but you'll still have to pay state income tax in 13 states. These states are Colorado, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Carolina, New York, Rhode Island, South Carolina, and West Virginia. Now, like I had mentioned, each state is different. What's interesting is there are some states that do not charge state taxes on unemployment benefits. These states are Alabama, California, Montana, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Now, what's interesting is many other states decided to adopt the federal government's rule with the American Rescue Plan, and they decided not to tax the $10,200 unemployment benefits. I'm talking state taxes now, okay? So these states that decided to adopt the Biden administration's rule to pass through the American Rescue Plan are Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Missouri, North Dakota, Nebraska, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Utah. Also, the good news is the IRS did announce that it will start issuing refunds in May to individuals who filed their returns but are eligible to take advantage of this new break in unemployment benefits. According to the IRS, and this is a quote from the IRS, because a change occurred after some people filed their taxes, the IRS will take steps in the spring and summer to make the appropriate change to their return, which may result in a refund. The first refunds are expected to be made in May and will continue into the summer. By the way, you'll get a link to all of our resources in the description section below, so make sure to check them out. While all this is happening, the president's been busy. In fact, the president spoke with reporters and called out the Republicans for their resistance to the infrastructure plan, because their own infrastructure plan, which actually did not happen under former President Trump, did include money for roads and bridges. Let's check out President Biden being completely blunt and calling out the Republicans for criticizing his own infrastructure plan because it includes components from the Republicans' prior infrastructure proposal. Let's roll the tape and hear from President Biden.
We talked a lot about infrastructure today. And it's kind of interesting that when the Republicans put forward an infrastructure plan, they thought everything from broadband to dealing with other things was trains or infrastructure. Now they're saying that there's only a small portion of what I'm talking about is infrastructure. The fact of the matter is that when you're in a situation where you can't turn out a water fountain in school and worry you're going to drink polluted water and affect your health, replacing all those pipes with infrastructure.
One of the main concerns of the Republicans, specifically the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, that increasing the corporate income tax from 21% back up to 28%. Remember, it was 35% before former President Trump dropped it down to 21% through the 2017 tax cuts. One of the concerns is that this could lead corporations to go elsewhere. In fact, President Biden was specifically asked, are you afraid that a higher tax rate will drive corporations to other countries? Let's hear President Biden's response and his rationale for his response. Very interesting comments. Basically, the president said, nope, I'm not worried. And when he was asked why not, he said, because there's no evidence of that. Let's roll the tape and hear from President Biden, essentially implying that corporations leaving America to go to other countries with a lower corporate income tax rate, essentially implying that it is a manufactured problem by the Republican Party, and there's no evidence to fear that that's going to happen. Let's check this out.
Are you afraid that a higher tax will drive corporations to other countries?
Not at all. Look, the tax, because there's no evidence of that. The tax was 36%. It's now down to 21%. And the idea that's bizarre. We were talking about a 28% tax that everybody thought was just fair enough for everybody.
Now, the next segment is even more interesting. Jeremy Diamond from CNN asked the president about his willingness to compromise on the infrastructure bill, to which the president basically said, well, I'm not going to negotiate with you on that. Let's check this out and see what the president said.
Where is the room for negotiation with Republicans? What parts of your plan are you willing to do away with, given the definition of infrastructure here is so different?
Well, I'm not going to negotiate with you on that.
Well, no, but what would you?
No, I mean, why would I say that?
What would you tell the American people about where you're willing to compromise?
I'm going to push as hard as I can to change the circumstance so we can compete with the rest of the world.
Now, folks, while all this is happening, here's a bombshell article from the New York Times, and we'll show you this headline on your screen. How Trump steered supporters into unwitting donations. Online donors were guided into weekly recurring contributions, demands for refunds spiked, and complaints to banks and credit union companies soared, but the money helped keep former President Donald Trump's campaign afloat during a very critical time leading up to the election. Now, this is an incredible chart, and by the way, this is reporting from the New York Times, so please don't blame the messenger. Let's show you this chart on your screen, how refunds to Trump donors soared in 2020. Now, refunds are shown as a percentage of money received by each operation to date via the different organizations and the different mechanisms that they use to collect money. And you can see that by June, the Trump operation and the RNC had added more pre-filled check boxes. Now, I'll actually show you these check boxes. So when you were donating, there was a check box that was actually pre-filled, indicating implied consent for the donor making their donation reoccurring. It was a pre-filled checkbox that donors had to uncheck in order to make sure that their bank account or their credit card would not be charged in a recurring manner. And many donors did not uncheck it. And so let's take a look at what happened in September on this chart. By September, the Trump operation began to have online donations reoccur weekly by default, and you can see the total refunds. You can see in 2020, $122 million were refunded by Trump, and $21 million were refunded by the Biden campaign. More than 6 times the number of refunds had to be done by the Trump campaign because of complaints about recurring charges by donors from donors' bank accounts and credit cards. So here's the first checkbox that appeared in March 2020. Make this a monthly recurring donation, and again, it was checked by default. Then here's a modification that they did. Make this a monthly recurring donation, was checked by default. And there was another check mark for let's break a fundraising record on President Trump's birthday. Join now. The additional donation will process on June 14. So they started to get a little creative, if you will, about how they were charging credit cards. And then the language changed as we got closer and closer to the debate. You'll see this checkbox below, make this a weekly recurring donation. President Trump, I debate Joe Biden on September 29, and I need to know that I have your support. Join the Trump Cash Blitz now. Donate an additional $100 automatically on the 29th of September. So you can start to see that their digital strategy evolved for the Trump campaign over time. Here's another one that talks about the president's executive club for true patriots only. I'm quite fascinated by the use of the word patriots quite extensively by the Trump campaign. What does this mean? If you're not a Trump supporter, you're not a patriot. Super interesting psychological framing here of tribalism. In other words, if you're a supporter, you're a patriot. If you're not a patriot. So super interesting language language used here. And take a look at this checkbox, President Trump. Congrats, you've been selected as a end of quarter most valuable player. Join the cash blitz now and make it official. And let's take a look at one more check mark here as we get towards the election. This is the final month until election day, and we need every patriot stepping up. Again, notice the use of the word patriot. And 4 more years, and then they talk about there's some other message that is pre-selected. And notice at the end of the second pre-checked box, donate an additional $100 automatically on October 9. So again, you can start to see the evolution in the digital strategy that really led to a lot of complaints and a lot of refunds. And this story was broken by the New York Times. You'll get a link to this article in the description section below. And former President Trump is keeping himself very busy. In another article on CNN, again, don't blame the messenger. I'm reporting what other news sources are reporting. You'll see this article from CNN, almost beyond parody. Jim Acosta, who is former President Trump's best friend, actually he's not, responds to what former President Trump is doing now is offering personalized greetings through his own website. Here's a tweet that shows you Jim Acosta speaking with Michael D'Antonio, who wrote a book for former President Trump. And basically, Acosta says, I was waiting for Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. to come out. It's almost sad. And D'Antonio said this would be his Fat Elvis period. Former President Trump used to think of himself as an Elvis type of character. So, folks, this is pretty interesting. Now, the headline on your screen from CNN, Donald Trump launches new website for personal office after social media bans. In fact, I tell you what, why don't we take a look at former President Trump's new website. So here's the website on your screen, everyone. Quite a beautiful website. 45office.com, the website of the former President of the United States, Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States. And as we check out this website, there's a button at the top that says contact. Let's go ahead and click on the contact link and check out what that has in store for us. So when you click on the contact button, and then let's scroll down a little bit, on the left side, you'll see a link on the website of former President Trump. This is a brand new website, everybody. You'll see a link that says request a greeting. So let's go ahead and click request a greeting now. And now on that page, let's take a look at this drop down that says occasion. So former President Trump is providing personalized greetings for birthdays, for military retirements, for weddings, for condolences, for new babies, for graduation ceremonies, an Eagle Scout Award, a Girl Scout Gold Award. This is some super interesting stuff. So I just figured if this is something you're interested in, you can go to 45office.com and request this from former President Trump. So that's it, everybody. Very interesting responses from President Biden to journalists asking about the infrastructure campaign. A very interesting digital strategy from the Republican National Committee and former President Trump as they were trying to raise money leading up to the 2020 election, and of course a breakdown of the states that are refusing to do what the federal government is doing, which is waive federal income taxes, and also a breakdown of states that will continue to charge state tax on unemployment benefits, even though the federal government and many other states deciding to follow the federal government will not be charging state income tax on unemployment benefits earned in 2020, subject to certain criteria. Thank you so much for watching. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm. I want you to know I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.